and 6, Kyle Lowry with the ring, Kawhi Leonard bringing the chips to the city. I want my chips with the dip, that's all I know. I don't want my chips plain, I want my chips with the dip. So bring them dips. You see what my hat says, not finals, not Eastern Conference, not nice try, or see you next year, champions. Let's go, talk.
That's who did I steal from? Price tags on making the world feel some. They don't have enough to satisfy a real one.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
Shoot trying to miss. Like every shot.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
Try to make it so I was gonna act surprised.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
Love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more question you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic, and we're starting off the Raptors end of season series for 2022-2023. And we're going to start off with the elephant in the room. Obviously, Nick Nurse was let go. We know this after the fact. But the interview and clips today were before he was let go. And we're going to focus really on this year's issues. Because there's a lot of great stuff in that interview. And it will come up at a later date. But we're going to focus on this year today. So the first place to start has to be the disconnection within the team. And fitting newer pieces in and molding up younger pieces in that system. There was a lot of disconnect. Clearly the roster changing over and flipping over made issues worse. But there was just generally this really disconnected combobulation of guys out there. And it felt really messy this year. Not from just like the normal parameters what people think is messy, but there was a lot of different things that didn't look completely right this year. And let's hear what Nick feels on that disconnect.
Do you think it didn't click in the same way that it clicked last year?
Well, I think that first of all, I think last year it certainly clicked maybe at a level beyond what we were expecting, maybe. I mean, it was super high level play, really good connectivity on the defensive end, really especially, from about December 1 on, and then really good from, later on, February 1 on, right? Think that this year we got a little bit disconnected at times, especially defensively, right? I think that talked about that. It just like there was that stretch of games where just like take one aspect of it, take defensive transition. It just really got disconnected, and so we had to really work hard to get that kind of back connected again. And I think the guys did a good job of that. You mentioned this before, but there was a stretch there, January, February, etc. That it was the workload was heavy, practices were hard, film sessions were long. We were really, really grinding to get those guys back together, and I think we did that a lot of times there late in the season, just not quite enough.
So we can hear Nick Nurse's view on the situation, and I think that was the biggest part of why he was let go. I think the disconnect was from, we build these players with self-accountability in mind so they can kind of gauge where they're at. So we need a coach that puts them in the right scenarios so they're not too hard on themselves, right? And I think Nick was letting them try to figure it out too much, and them feeling like failures really hurt the culture of the team, in a sense of maybe feeling supported by the coach, or different scenarios of what was happening at that time he clearly said they were all trying to work really hard to get really connected again. But obviously, the system that he was running and has been running had a hitch in it that it's too built around the specific players, in a sense of he builds a system based on Siakam, OG, and FEV skills and Scotty skills and whoever's skills, and he builds the offensive and defensive systems based on the specific skills of the player. But now when those players are out running, what are you running? And that's where everything was starting to really show the weaknesses of what his system was doing here, and having newer pieces come up and giving them the proper confidence. So we're going to hear on how he feels about that.
The season designing the best play that you see fit on the court versus understanding the limitations or the capabilities of what your team is able to execute.
Well, I think that the biggest thing that you're always trying to do is you're trying to create a system that your guys can be successful in, right? And I think that that takes some tweaking and moving around and stuff. I always say that the offense evolves all the time. You're doing things and running things that never made your pre-summer or your post whatever summer planning. You make out, here's what it's going to look like throughout the year, and here's when we're going to add this or take this away or whatever. It always evolves a little differently, and playing it to the current needs of the team, and with a short term plus a little bit of a long term view as the season's rolling out, right? And then just getting to a high level of execution. Are we getting to great spacing? Are we running things in the half court with pace? Are we setting good screens? Are we making good reads? Are we getting to the next action? Those kind of things.
So we heard his philosophy when he constructs his game plans and builds his systems out and what he's trying to do with his development. And I think there was just a lot of focus on the top guys. And obviously the lesser guys didn't get as much planning from Nick. And obviously that showed in the way the roster played out through the years. And this has been a trend, but we'll keep trends for another video, which I'll describe in housekeeping. So we'll move on. But I want to kind of phrase out what he believes, the levels of development, and how he wants to still take. He's still developing Pascal. He's still developing FEV. He's still developing OG. He's still developing these other guys that seem like they're done or whatever, but he sees it a different way. So let's see how he inputs that kind of different assessing levels of development.
Tracking top free agents. What challenges does that present you as a coach when most of your development has to come from players that you draft or undrafted free agents?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that certainly is somewhat of a challenge at times, but I think we've always understood that player development is part of what we're doing, whether we're developing a guy to being an NBA player or a rotational player or taking a really good player and trying to get him into star status or all-star status or all-league status, whatever, right? I think there's development for every position on that roster. And I would say this, I think that we're going to have to take a hard look at that, because I don't think we could have worked any harder last summer with these guys, man. These guys really worked hard. We had them together a lot. It was a really great job by the staff and everybody to and the players, for committing the time and going out there and working that hard and all that kind of stuff. So again, another part of the process of we know we got to be great in development, right? And we got to do it. Bottom line.
And there's the rub. Bottom line, you gotta get the development done. And we did put a lot of attention and resources into the summer and having the guys really try to push that team progression further. Like I've been saying all year, that was the focus of this year. But clearly, we hit a couple issues. Got Pirtle, but then we didn't see a good enough of a plan with when we had Pirtle from Nick. And I think that's where we did the evaluation, looking at the trends coming into the summer and seeing that part where he kind of didn't really deliver when finally we had that kind of big piece, more experienced piece. And I think it just showed that his system, it's great for like players that have been in the league longer, but for guys that have been in the year max like 1, 2, 3 years, it's really hard to create consistency. So let's hear what he has to say about that consistency from the bench guys like that, in a sense.
You talked about wanting to find more production off the bench. We saw this season Precious and Gary both had good moments with the starting lineup, but then struggled to go back to the bench. Why do you think that was, and sort of how do you get them to find comfort in those roles and be able to produce like they do when they start?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we've seen over the years as well. You know, I think who else is in there? Norman is a guy that used to have some great moments starting, and then, you know, whatever. And it's being able, and that's the hard part about it, is being able to go out there and perform at a high level in whatever role that it's required from the team at that point, and that just takes a little experience.
So obviously Nick Nurse talks about playing with the lineup a little bit, and I think younger players especially need more consistency and structure and learn one way before you start showing them every way, right? And I think that's where I think Nick works great as like a finishing guide to like the build versus like the guy that kind of outfits the first kind of built up system and builds up like a kind of the best way to play, and then Nick comes in and finds the variations that are most effective and stuff. So I think right now we're looking for a harder handed, stronger, like in the play kind of guy that can really take the onus of losing on him more than putting it on the players when they don't perform. Like there's a great clip that's going to come up where he's talking about the freedom and the selfish play of this year, right? And that kind of disconnected basketball where it was like a lot of individual development, like he was talking about before. He was developing certain guys, but the team togetherness, progression, development wasn't happening. And that was in the result shown out by us going out in the play-in with sort of issues that were seen ahead of time and weren't like fixed. And obviously I think we're going to go into the trends with Nick in a different video, but obviously the bench guys and the younger guys didn't get enough structure in order to be successful, right? So there's layers to this, but I think having a stronger handed coach that can really game plan harder maybe is the way to really get things done. And let's hear what he has to say about what happened with the selfish play now.
I talked at the trade deadline more than once about selfish play out there.
Yeah.
How did you see that? How did you deal with it?
Well, I think that, again, we always want offensively to make the right basketball play, right? And there's certain guys that are going to have the ball in their hands and are creating for themselves and for others. I think, I think there was certainly some ups and downs in that area, right? I think that it improved a lot as the season went on. I think guys, I think we're always trying to expand roles and give guys a chance to improve and get better, right? And I think that we do leave enough freedom and open space for those guys to try to develop some of their skills, et cetera. But I think, in the end, it was okay. I mean, it was okay. I thought they did make the right plays most of the time. I mean, even last night in the game, there was, I think, 4 or 5 turnovers that were really costly. Like, we don't turn the ball over. We don't turn the ball over. And even some of those were guys trying to get it out to the right play, but for whatever reason, they missed the target a couple times and ended up in costly turnovers. But again, going back to your question, they were trying to get off the ball and get it to the right place.
So there, Nick kind of explained out what his philosophy is with how much rope and why he gives them a rope, because he wants them to have room to do better, and expanding roles and disbanding roles and all that kind of stuff. And one guy gets pushed off from that kind of bit, in a sense of where they're talking about how Precious was starting and Gary Trent Jr. was starting, and then they were on the bench, and maybe they should have been on the bench in the first place, in a sense. I know injuries happened and all this craziness, but I think there are a lot of different things that he didn't do necessarily, in a sense of trying to utilize the guys that he did have and trying to build out a proper game plan for the bench, instead of just relying on the starters to kind of patchwork the bench stuff in, versus actually building something for them to run and do based on the individuals within that system, right? So I think there were a lot of issues that showed out through the season. And I think, to summarize, obviously, Masai felt we needed a different type of coach for this type of team, in a sense of someone that's maybe a bit stronger and more on the younger guy, because we are a seriously young team. Other than they're 4 or 5, 6 guys, the rest of the team is fairly young in a sense of experience. And he even said that it's about experience when he was talking about the bench roles and kind of knowing what the team needs at every night. That's based on experience, seeing that and being in those roles. But I think ultimately you still need to build a base role for these guys coming in to kind of know their place and kind of be able to excel. And he wasn't doing that well enough for the younger guys. And that was a trend, but we'll leave that for housekeeping, which we'll end off here and do that now. So housekeeping. So I always want to start out thanking the real ones for the subs, the likes, the comments, really pushing the stuff going, you know what I mean. But respect to everyone that really comes and checks out my videos and stuff. And I really appreciate everyone that does give it a chance. And, well, obviously this video was kind of short about Nick, but I think I was preparing up to do something around this date of January 9th on the 10-year anniversary. Obviously Nick didn't make it to the full 10 years, but we're still gonna talk about different things. And I think it's key to keep in mind, we don't know exactly who's coming in next, and we have to pair the trends to realize what Masai really demands from a coach, in a sense of what his responsibilities are. Because now we have 3, we're going to have a 3rd different coach. So we can start to draw more concrete lines, and I want to kind of do that in a more retrospective look. Obviously, it was going to be a continuation piece on Nick Nurse if he stayed, and now that he's fired, it's more of an ending piece, transition piece to a newer coach. Hopefully by July 9th, we know who the coach is, and we can have a kind of idea of what we're going into. But I just wanted to kind of stick to this year and kind of assessing this year and Nick's part in it, right? We're going to go through the other guys in those exit interviews, and I'm just gonna try to keep it nice, short, to the point, and then use clips from these interviews in other videos when they're more on point, where I can kind of group thoughts of information. I'm gonna start trying to do that more and trying to organize over the summer and find a way to kind of build up clips for a certain video, because I want to talk about the coaching contracts and all that kind of stuff at some point, and I got Nick's freak out and all that kind of stuff, and I want to go into that once the truth is more revealed about what happened there, right? I would like to get into that more once we have some more actual truth. I think it's still too early for that stuff to kind of come out at the moment, with the Raptors looking for a new head coach and kind of that search ongoing, and not wanting to taint that process in any way. He has to kind of just toe the line for now, in a sense. So I'm gonna definitely come back to Nick at some point, but we're gonna move on to our other Raptors next week and stuff, you know what I mean? But I want to salute out Raptors freak Lex, 9:30 a.m. every day, talking Raptors, taking comments. Really great community of great people that care about the team, really want the team to win. Another great basketball person is Basketball Rewind Van Hoot, and he's been doing some draft things. I still got to catch up on all the prospects, in a sense, and all that kind of stuff when I have more downtime, but he did release a Nick Nurse video on what his ideas about Nick Nurse. I didn't watch it yet because I didn't want to taint my own video, but check that out if you enjoy maybe some different style or view on critiques. I haven't seen it yet, but we'll see. Hopefully a lot of things line up, or maybe they don't, you know, who knows. So it's all about everyone adding their view to it and adding the context and raw facts to different things, and it's everyone, it's a collective voice, right? And not one person is everything, in a sense. So it's really great to have other creators like these guys really doing their great stuff on their channels, and I just want to salute the real ones, because that's who it's really about. The people who are making content for is the real ones, the real fans of the Raptors, and that really want to know about this team and stuff. And salute the real ones. Project Truth always. Logical Raptors. Fanatic out. Mike G. Mike G.
Oh man, I love my team, man, I love my team. I would die for them.
Not just cause I want to, cause I got to. Put the squad on your back, did the impossible. It's only logical, it's fitted from the heart.
Problems hit the gym, they all work out. MVP, even next season looking like a breeze.